Oh yeah, got me one. Little vibrating jig, freeloader action, choked it. You know, for me, I really like to match up my trailers depending obviously on the color of the vibrating jig. This one right here is, you know, a bluegill imitator on ChatterBait and that sungill. I just feel like when they're eating bluegills, it just seems to me, or, you know, sunfish or brim, whatever they are, that sort of combination does a really good job of imitating that and gets some nice fish. So just one thing, little attention to detail like that can definitely get you a couple bites throughout the day that you wouldn't have received. You're throwing a ChatterBait, you can cover so much more water, you can be efficient. It's just like whether you're fishing around rock, wood, grass, it gives you, typically this is the bait that I'm gonna be throwing when it comes down to covering water and giving me an understanding of what's really transpiring on this body of water. I can cover it and be efficient. This bait might not be the deal for that day, but I can find and hone in the zone that those fish are really wanting to be at or what they're wanting to do. You know, so say, hey, the bass are on rock, I'm just firing that down the bank. I can cover so much more water than if I was just pitching down that bank. Then all of a sudden I find out, hey, they're on rocky banks. I start to slow down. I go down through there, I start pitching, you know, a creature bait. I start pitching around, and I start generating bites. So like there's search baits, and you hear that all the time, but a ChatterBait is probably one of the best, and this combination right here is one of the best search baits that you have in your boat. Got him, there he is. Right where, that's what's up. Not a big one, but we're on this massive grass flat, and just getting a bite allows for you to say, hey, there's some bass in this area. You know, you can really cover water fast. So I'll slow down, maybe, even though that wasn't a big fish, I know, hey, there's some fish around this zone. So I might slow down a little bit, drop the power poles a little bit more, make a few casts, because you never know, especially when you're on these grass flats like this, there could be a group of fish sitting on one little spot the size of your boat. So always make the same cast you just caught that fish on, because it can get fun real quick. You know, there's a lot of options as far as trailers out there for a ChatterBait, and typically I'm a big fan of a straight, narrow, minnow style trailer. The key is with that, I'll show you why. So if I throw a swim bait or like a crawl on the back of a ChatterBait, it's really just gonna make my bait track true and straight, okay? And that's good at times, but think of this in the term of throwing like balsa wood crankbaits or you know, that perfect crankbait that hunts. You know, you hear that hunting action. That's exactly what I want my ChatterBait to be doing. And so with that, when I don't have anything like a rudder back there and I just have this, you know, straight minnow style bait, that allows for my bait to go out there and all of a sudden start hunting. When it hits a piece of wood or it hits a piece of grass and I pull it off there, it'll shoot off to the side. And those little unique movements is what really triggers those fish into biting. That's why 90% of the time I'm gonna have, you know, that bait on there when I'm throwing a ChatterBait. All right, so my ChatterBait system is pretty simple. I try to keep it simple because obviously driving all over the country, I've dealt with a lot of different conditions, but you know, colors, you know, I keep it simple with a black and blue, a green pumpkin, a shad pattern, and I have a few other ones around that, you know, if I need one to do something a little bit different, I can use that. And really where it comes down to is the trailer selection, which I can dress it up or dress it down. And what I mean by that is, okay, so I have a black and blue ChatterBait. Water's stained, but it's not so stained that I'm worried about, it's not so stained that it's like that in between. So that I might want a black and blue ChatterBait, but then I can take a green pumpkin trailer, rig him up, and I'm good to go right there. You know, it just sort of gives me a little bit of the contrast. I can do that pretty easily, and now he's ready to roll. Okay, say I'm throwing a green pumpkin ChatterBait, but I want a little pop. The water's a little bit dirtier, and I think they're gonna eat a green pumpkin a little bit better. Well, hey, I can go to the green pumpkin chartreuse. I want a little more pop. I'll rig him up, just like so, and now I have that little pop that I'm looking for in that green pumpkin ChatterBait. You know what I'm saying? That's sort of how I try to set up my system. Or, hey, I got a wider, you know, a shad pattern. If water's a little bit more dirty, I might go with a sight flash, something a little bit more of like the opaque color. But if the water's real clean, I might go with like a gizzard shad, or a green shad, just like this one right here. You know, something that I want to be really subtle, subdued. But that's sort of the mindset I have when I select trailers and I'm selecting colors. I keep it simple, but then I have a lot of different trailers that I can sort of mix and match with those colors to sort of dress them up or dress them down. So right now, you know, I'm sort of in this ditch, and you got to sort of think, I'm looking down at the bottom, I'm looking at how deep it is, there's isolated targets around, there's lily pads out here in front, there's some submerged grass that's sort of growing up in the middle of the ditch. So I'm trying to figure out where exactly they're set up at, you know, and that's sort of allowing me to make these casts and figure if, you know, they're obviously biting fairly well. So I just got to really just, you know, I've had 2 bites super shallow on the inside grass line, and I've had a bite out there actually in that submerged grass. So trying to figure out really where they want to set up at is I'm sort of still trying to figure that part out. So when I go to a new body of water, it's all about efficiency and how fast I can break it down. So for me, obviously, that's always why I have a ChatterBait on the front deck. It just is what it is. It's one thing that I can cover water, I can find fish. Oh gosh, that one smoked it. I can find fish pretty fast. And then once I find them, it might or might not be the best bait for the job. So I can sort of switch it up from there. And right now we're getting around a few. So that fish was on a little bit of that. Let me see if he's got a brother on this side. No dice, okay. When selecting the right rod for this application, you know, you want something, to me, a 7.4, 7.6 when you're casting on out here on the grass edges and stuff like that, it is the best, you know, probably length. 17 pounds Subx Advanced Fluorocarbon is the line that I like to throw. You can throw 14 or 15, but I want to have a little bit more. You know, if I'm casting out there and one gets it and I get in a little bit of grass, I can pull that fish out of that grass and not really worry about it. But the big thing though is hook up on a chatterbait is some people have really good luck with it and some people have a tough time with it. And so the biggest thing and piece of advice I can give you if you're having an issue with losing fish, the key is not to set the hook, okay? So you gotta think. When a bass eats a chatterbait, what happens is this. They go up there and they'll grab the whole thing in their mouth, like this. And so when you snap set, okay, if you're a slackliner, you're probably gonna lose some bass on a chatterbait. So if you slackline, what happens is that blade pops up, pops their mouth open, and then you skin hook them or don't hook them at all. Okay, so what I do when I cast out there, all right, fish eats it, dunk, keep reeling, keep reeling, keep reeling, let the rod load up. And then what happens is, when you do that, that blade slowly goes forward. That hook point allows for that fish to have a little time to sort of close his mouth back on the bait, and your hook point goes in the roof of their mouth. So, but the big key with that is the right rod selection. You need a parabolic rod. You need something that has some backbone further back in it, but to me, that is the right rod selection. I actually designed this rod, this is 7.4 medium heavy, for specifically throwing a chatterbait. And I just, when you can bat 100% on a chatterbait, it is the most unbelievable bait out there. But you just have to change the way you're setting the hook, you have to change the way, when that fish gets it, I know it's hard, sometimes they'll bite it so hard. Really take your time, reel into them like a swim bait, and you're gonna have a lot better success with your hook up ratio and your hook to land ratio, that's for sure. And then last but not least is gear ratio. I've gone back and forth on this, I really have. This right here is a 6.2 to 1 Curado 150. But man, if I'm really shallow, I'd rather roll with a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. If I'm out deeper, I wanna keep that bait down there. I have a tendency to reel fast and wanna cover a lot of water, you guys know me. And so then I try to go to a 6.2 in those scenarios. If I'm out there on a big grass flat and I'm fishing 8-foot water or deeper, or 4 foot or deeper, sometimes I'll throw that 1/2 ounce and I'll use that 6.2 to 1 gear ratio. It allows me to slow myself down. And that's sort of what when I decide, if I'm trying to cover a lot of water up super shallow, then that's when, when they'll bite it and they'll come towards you. Sometimes you do have to catch up with them. And that's when I decided to go with a 7.3 or a little bit faster gear ratio. So something that I already noticed as I sort of move around on this flat, that little section where we got those bites, it was just a little bit deeper. You know, I'm about 2 foot of water right here, and it was about 3 to 3.5, or maybe about a foot deeper over that way. And so those are the little subtle differences that you have to figure out as you go. You know, you just got to pay attention to those little subtle things, whether the depth change, the grass changes. That's going to be a big difference in why a fish is there. There's always, this is the thing, okay? For the most part, when you catch multiple fish, there's a reason why they're there. Whether it's depth, whether it's forage, you could say, well, it didn't make any sense, and I get that. But like one fish, they can be liars. You can sort of get in a position where you catch a few fish and you're like, hey, you know, this is a good deal. But you catch multiple fish in a zone, there's a reason why they're sitting in that zone, and figuring that out and then being able to utilize that for the pattern for the day that's what I try to do when I'm out here on these bodies of water. I'm trying to dial in a pattern, because one spot, you're not going to win a tournament on one spot. You're going to win tournaments or have a great day on the water if you can sort of make it work all over the lake, you know. And that's what I'm always looking for, and that's why covering water in this system works so well to do that.